All right, here we go. Episode 1 of Bloodborne. We're going to be doing the saw cleaver, and we're going to be using diamond hands only, no paper hands, to get this miniature painted. For all you GME people out there, for all you people holding that stock, we are holding tight. You know exactly what I'm talking about. I just had to throw that in there with the current times, and let's go. Let's do that. So we're going to take that ugly gray miniature, and we're going to turn it into this. Ooh, this isn't too bad. Not looking too shabby. Easy techniques. We're going to be doing some easy stuff. We're going to go a little unorthodox, but hey, if this is your first time at the channel, I'm going to be doing all of the Bloodborne miniatures, so you don't want to miss out. So hit that subscribe button, hit that ding button, and yeah, let's go. Now we're starting off with the ugly gray, and we're going to be using some files and a little scraper from Citadel to get all the mold lines off. Now there was one on the back that I couldn't decide if it was a mold line, if it was part of the model, so I skipped it, and I think it's an actual mold line. I'm an idiot. We're going to take some sticky tack, and we're going to place our models on an old spray can top that I use. We're going to spray them down here in a second. I'll line up all the main characters for the firing squad here real quick, and I'm going to be using airbrush for these. I'm going to be using some just regular primer, and I'm going to spray these in with the airbrush, but you have Chaos Black from Citadel or Vallejo spray paint. Go ahead and hit him with that if you want to save some time. I'm just doing that because I'm already in my Nerdatorium, and I was already going hard in the paint, so no pun intended. And this is what it looks like. Not too bad. I always use a wet palette for most of my things, and we're going to put some Lahmian Medium on here. Now, you might get some water in there, but that's okay because we want a thin paint anyway. Once getting your healthy brush full of Lahmian Medium, you're going to get a healthy brush full of Skavenblight Dinge to mix in there, and that's going to make our first base coat that we're going to hit here in a second. We are going to be going over the coat, back and front, the hat, shoulders down to about the elbows, and part of the pants. Now with this color and the way it's thinned, we want to hit a spot and then let it dry and then hit it again. So wait till it completely dries until you hit it again. It's going to take about 2 or 3 layers to do it, but take your time and enjoy the paint. And you can't hear it in the background, but I had some music blasting during this while drinking a cold one. Go ahead and hit that entire hat up, that Yankee Doodle hat or whatever the hell it is, and we're going to be hitting that whole thing. And we're going to be hitting that front part of the jacket. Now if we're following the card, which I am trying to do, of the art of the character, you can kind of see that the inside shirt is a little gray. I just find that this miniature is so small that it's such a minute detail that I didn't do it, because by the time, and you'll see here in a little bit, by the time you hit the belt, it's just, you can't even tell a difference. So just hit the outside and the front of the pants up to the shin guards. Alright, you're going to take your original mix and you're going to mix in 1 healthy brushful of Danwstone to get our new color. And save this because we're going to use it here towards the end too. We're going to start hitting the raised ripples of the coat and the bottom portion of it. And if you're thinning it correctly, as I've shown you, it's going to start blending into our original coat. It's going to give it a lighter layering coat as we're building it into it. As we continue to go over it, think of it as a pie chart. If we did 100% with our first coat, we want to do about 75% with this coat. On the back side, you really want to hit the raised areas that are going to be getting hit in the sun, or when the sun is at its highest point, or the zenith. And you want to get the parts that are sticking out or the raised areas. Obviously the sun is going to get a lot of attention on top of the hat, so we're going to make that pretty bright, so most of that is going to get hit. Same with the top of the shoulders. We're going to be doing a pretty bright highlight. and working it on those ridges and raised points on the shoulder. After your first layer is dry, we're going to go back and kind of hit some other layers and brighten it up just a little bit, and we're going to make some contrast between the dull gray and the brighter gray. Also, don't forget about the front of the pants, as there's quite a bit of detail with those pants and the wavature of the pants. So we're going to hit those raised spots, and we're going to be hitting these with highlights here in a second. And if you're wondering what brush I'm using a Rosemary & Co. size 1 brush that is fantastic for the price. And no, I'm not sponsored by them. I'm sponsored by nobody. Myself. That's all I need. Now we're going to make our new color now. We're going to take our one healthy brushful of Lahmian Medium. And one healthy brushful of Danwstone. We are doing the same thing we did with the previous color, and we are working on those raised portions. Now, if you're looking at this video and think, wow, these are kind of bright, and if you look at the picture, it's not very bright. There's a lot of light on this miniature, so it's brighter than what appears, kind of like Jurassic Park when the T-Rex is chasing. Some of you guys probably don't even know what that is. Maybe I'm outdating myself, but objects in mirror are closer than they appear. It's going to eat the Jeep. Whatever. Maybe Jeff Goldblum would understand. And we're just getting the raised portions on top of our miniature and building up those highlights. We're doing about 50 to 40%. We're working on those raised areas, and we're really concentrating on the edges and the top portion to where the sun would hit it the most. As we bring our attention to the back of our miniature, we're hitting those raised edges once again, or the raised folds and flaps, and we're working 2 to 3 layers into those, building up those highlights and doing less and less each time. We are also hitting the bottom portion of the miniature's long coat, I guess you could say, and building up those highlights as well. Take a brush, a shade brush, and get some Nulin Oil on. Don't get a lot, just get a little bit, where if you rub it on your finger or put it on your finger, you could see that there'd be some wetness behind, but it's not like oversaturating your finger. And put it in the crevices of the portions, is what I'm doing in the miniature. And what it's going to do is it's going to desaturate a little bit. It's going to add some darkness to the miniature back again. If you put it too light, which you may or may not have, but it's going to give it some of that darkness, because this game is extremely dark, and you want your miniature not to pop out as much as normal miniatures would. Now take your Danwstone and add some Ulthuan Grey, so probably like a brushful. And we are going very sparingly with this, and we're doing mostly the edges, and you're just going to tap it like a dot, like if you're doing just little dots, and connect the dots, and that's going to give it that breakup of very light to medium. If you head over to our Instagram, which is nerd.nice, you'll see the castle picture that you saw in the beginning. And go ahead and follow us over there. We're always posting new stuff, new games coming out, and what I got coming up in the future. And I'll continue to hit some edge highlighting and just do sparing little subtle pieces of highlights throughout the already highlighted areas we've done so far. And that's just going to add some of that nice little contrast. For the back, I am concentrating on the lowest portions of the cape. And as you can see, I'm not going in the area where we just hit it with Nulin Oil or we built up that Nulin Oil, because I want to keep those areas as dark as possible. Hitting the top portion of his collar just to give it some nice little brightness. And focusing on the hat again to make it a little bit brighter, as it is a focal point to our miniature. And that will be our final step for the jacket, which looks good. It is out of order, but I want to get that knocked out first, and that was the hardest part. Moving on. We're going to be hitting up a lot of our silver pieces, so we're going to start working on the saw blade, and we're using, of course, Leadbelcher, the staple of metal in Citadel painting. And we're going to be hitting the saw blade portion of the handle and the pistol here in a second. Now, if you get some on the straps while doing the saw blade, it is absolutely not a big deal, because we'll just go back over here in a second, and you're going to see why I kind of did it in the order I did it, just for this specific reason. But just follow around what I'm doing and enjoy the paint. Now we're going to take a little Rhinox Hide, and we're going to use it for our handle on our gun, shotgun, long barrel pistol, whatever it is. And we're going to be using this on all of the belt buckles, or the belt straps, I should say, that are connecting on the front of the miniature. Just be very careful while doing this step, because you don't want to get onto the coat that we just finished painting. So take your time, don't rush it, and get a nice little steady 3-point base with your elbows on the table, and just go over those straps very carefully. You might need 2 coats, but one probably would suffice. To get some dark metal brought into this already dark miniature, we're going to be using a little Iron Warriors. Now, if you don't have Iron Warriors, you can always use Leadbelcher mixed with a little bit of black, and that's going to give you a darker color silver, per se. So we're going to be using this on the gauntlets that our miniature has, and we're going to be using it on the shin guards that our miniature has as well. And don't forget, behind the ankles, I guess you could say on the Achilles heel of our miniature, there are 2 pieces of metal you need to hit. For our hands and behind the gauntlets, I'm going to use a little Abaddon Black. Now this is, you could probably skip this if you wanted, or if you got some paint on it, you need to paint over it, as the primer will be black as well. If you want to do this, I just did it because it gives it a subtle difference that most people aren't going to notice. But if you're a painter and you say, oh, that's primer black and that's Abaddon Black, then there you go. We're going to take our original mixture that I told you to save, your Danwstone and Skavenblight Dinge, and we're going to do some highlighting on your boots and on the little knee pad thing that are covering his knees, obviously. And we're just going to be hitting very sparingly the top of the boot and around the side and a little bit onto your knee pad. For our buckles and buttons, we're going to be using Retributor Armour, and I know what you're thinking, this is too bright because it doesn't really match the color art for our card, but we're going to dull this down heavily here in a second, and it will match it here in a minute, so just trust the process. Have some faith. We're holding the line. Alright, we're going to be using Steel Legion Drab for two things. For the straps on the saw blade and for the scarf, I guess that's what it is, underneath the handkerchief he has over his face. So the handle and the straps going around the saw blade or the cleaver blade and the handkerchief that he has around his face. Again, if you mess up, not a big deal. Just go back over with the other color that you need to fill in for it. And just take your time. It's about it took me 2 coats for each thing for the Steel Legion Drab on the black. For the scarf, I am using Dark Reaper, and it's got that nice blue, dark blue tinge to it, and I think it matches the card art pretty well. For the skin that you can barely see on this thing, take a very small brush, size 10-0 brush is what I use, and go Rakarth Flesh on the skin. It's very not noticeable. We're going to put some wash on it here in a second. You're going to even notice it just even less, but you just need it there because that's what the card art shows. For the back hair of our saw cleaver, we're going to be using a little Mournfang Brown, and it's you can use it however you want. I just did this, and we're gonna wash it down here in a second, so it's going to really dull it down. All right, we're going to use Nulin Oil, and very, very carefully, you're going to go over all of the saw cleaver to include the handle, your gauntlets to include the hands, the straps, the ones that we use Rhinox Hide on, and all of the gold pieces to include the handkerchief and the scarf and even the face with the hair. Now, the reason I'm using black, because this isn't traditional, is because that card art is very dark, dismal, old school, like dark. And if you ever played the video games, it's I mean, that's all it is. I mean, it shouldn't be called Bloodborne, it should be called Darkborn. And we're just making that dark, and we are not going to use very many highlights, so we are almost done. We just want to lighten up some of that steel to make it look a little shiny. And if you can see on the card, his saw cleaver has got some highlights on it, but most notably the gun has a lot of highlights on it. So when you dull it down with that Nulin Oil and then you bring it right back up sparingly with that Runefang Steel, it makes it look super clean. And as you can see, while you use it sparingly, it looks like that thing is brand new, shine, tippity top, awesome. So we're going to do it on that and portions of our saw cleaver, and just do what I'm doing and just get all the little notches on the blade to get some reflection in there and make it look nice. Now we're just going to lighten up some of these straps with a little Steel Legion Drab. You can do the handkerchief if you want, again, but I wanted to keep it dark, so I just didn't want to mess with it. I thought it looked good, and we're just doing it for tabletop. This isn't going to win you a competition. You're not going to get a participation trophy, but it's going to look great on the table, and that's all we care about. And that's it. It didn't take a whole lot of time, and you know what? it turned out pretty effing good. There, Cotton. As you're watching it circle around, I mean, it's not bad. It's not bad. It could be a lot worse. But I don't go for trying to take 30 hours on one mini. I'm trying to get this damn thing on the table because I want to play board games. And I want to play board games with sick miniatures. And that's what we do. And that's what we're about at Nerd Knights Painting. Thank you so much for watching. I greatly appreciate you taking time to watch this. I hope it helped you out. If it did, leave me a comment. Tell me what you want to see painted next because I'm going to be spamming these things, blitzkrieging it. So let me know what you want to see. All right, I'm out. Paint on.